And today we are taking a break from drawing the Little Prince, and we are now drawing some of the people that he meets on his travels that we've been reading about. So today he met a couple people, starting with a king who was king over a very tiny planet that didn't even have any people in it. I don't even think it had a rat. He thinks there might be a rat, but he's not sure. So here we see our king here. Remember in the story we read that his robe covered up the whole planet, or almost the whole planet. There wasn't even a place for the little prince to sit down. So it's a very tiny little ball out there in space. We can see a throne here. We see our king sitting on the throne. He's got a crown, purple robe, and then a couple of other stars and another planet maybe, or maybe another star. I don't know. We'll say it's another one of the planets that the little prince visits. So this picture is not too complicated. Probably the trickiest thing will just be making sure that all of our pieces fit together right. Probably especially with the throne and the king on it. Making sure that we get that planet nicely covered. So we will talk about the rest as we go. We're going to go ahead and start with our brown stick crayon. We're going to start by doing a very light outline for the asteroid, or the planet. We'll call them planets. Now this is going to go, make sure your paper first is standing up straight and tall. Make sure it's in portrait, not in landscape. Portrait means standing up. So we have plenty of room for our king up here. Now I'm going to draw my ball here kind of on the bottom half of the paper, right in the middle. So I'm going to do this very lightly. Okay, somewhere about that size, maybe a little bigger actually. Sometimes I change my mind while I'm drawing. That's okay, right? As long as you draw light enough, you can always change it. So there's our asteroid. We'll color that in darker later, but first, while we still have our brown, we're going to draw that throne. So I'm going to draw basically a rectangle right on top. Do this very lightly. One line up, one line across, one line down. Okay, now we're ready to put our king on his throne. So before we color in any of this, we're going to go ahead and take our orange. I'm going to put his head right at the top line here, right under the top line of his throne. Oops, that was too big, but that's okay. I can fix that later. There we go. I'll go ahead and give him a neck too. Okay, now we can see here that he doesn't quite have a normal body shape, does he? Because his robe is covering it up. So how do we get it drawn? That's what we have to figure out. Let's take our purple, and I'm going to start by drawing a rectangle for the top part of his body, his chest and his stomach. I draw a rectangle right under his head. You see that? And we'll color it in. All right. Now the next thing I'm going to do is kind of crazy. I'm going to take this line here, these two lines on the side, and I'm going to bring them out all the way down over the side of the planet. They're not going to come together. We're not going to go all the way to the bottom, see? But we're going to bring them out and down, and then we'll stop close to the bottom. I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to start with this side first. Here's this line from his shoulders, and then it goes out, and I'm just going to follow the line that I already drew for that planet. Ooh, my paper's starting to slip away. We'll go about that far for that side. And then for this side, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to find this line and trace it. Oh, I drew this side longer than this side, so I'll make them even. Draw this one a little longer. There we go. Doesn't look like much yet, but we'll fix it. Now I'm going to take, let's start up here again. So with this rectangle body here, I'm going to draw a straight line down, meet the planet at the top. And this is where his robe is going to part. This side follows those lines again. You can draw some curves in here. Doesn't have to be totally straight because fabric kind of folds and curves, doesn't it? And I'll do the same thing on this side. Starting here. And there we go. Now when we color that in, we will have a nice full planet covering robe. You can see here I'm adding a few dark lines before I do that, just to make that fabric look more real. Fabric isn't flat, right? It's got curves and places where it's smooth and places where it goes up. So I'm thinking about that. Yours don't have to be exactly where mine is, but I'd like you to think about that too. Where does your fabric fold? Now, even though our king is sitting on a throne, we actually can't see his knees or his feet because they're all covered up by his robe, which also, handily enough, makes it easier to draw. Okay. So keep going until you have nice, crisp lines. You know what crisp means? Nice, tidy lines here on the outside of him. I'm going to go back and I'm going to just darken some of these places where the fabric folds again. Okay. Now our good king is missing his arms. Don't worry, we'll add them in just a second. You see how having his robe go like this even makes our planet look round before we even color it? Isn't that kind of cool? Different elements, different things in a picture work together. And you gotta make sure to match them so they work together the right way. We want our planet to look round, so we drew his robe going around it. All right, now we're gonna give him his arms. I'm gonna do this basically giving him kind of stick arms. I'm gonna take this off by his shoulder, draw a line down. I'm gonna do this very dark. Down, and then just into his lap. He's kind of sitting with his hands in his lap. I'm gonna do it again on this side. Bring it down, and then kind of give it a bend to bring it in. See that? It's going whoosh, whoosh, like that. And then I can color in where I want to. Make sure all of that matches. We want the same texture. It's the same fabric, right? All right. So there's our king. There's his robe. Bring this down just a little bit more. There we go. Now we are going to give our king a crown. So let's take our yellow. Oh no, I'm sorry. We're going to give our king his hair first because his crown sits on top of his hair. So let's give him his hair. I'm just going to start with drawing a black line, tracing that top of his head. And I can kind of do some up and down lines to make it look like he's got hair. See that? Now in the example picture, this one also has a beard and a mustache. So I'm going to do that too. Otherwise, he kind of looks like a girl, doesn't he? Give him a beard. See that I'm doing a bunch of short lines going up and down. A little beard. It's not very long. And then I'll give him a mustache. That's just a curved line going upside down. There we go. Now let's give him a crown. Poor king. I'm going to do this by starting the same way I started his hair. I'm going to take my yellow and I'm going to draw a line tracing the top of his hair. Oh, see my yellow picked up a little bit of the black. That happens with crayons sometimes. That's okay. All right. So we're just drawing a band of yellow at the top of his head. And then I'm going to do 4 spikes going up. 1 spike, 2, 3, And the last thing I need to do for the crown is draw another curved line near the top of those spikes, just connecting them. See that? There's our king. He's looking very regal. Now we can take our brown again. Now that we have our king set, our main thing, we can color in the background of him. So we'll start with his throne. I'll just trace these lines that I already had. And I'll color around him. Especially near his head, I'm going to be very careful not to color over him. Just around. And kind of greet him with the color, say hello, and then go away. Same thing on that side. Now you might not have white space between his arm and his body on yours, but I do. So I'm going to go ahead and just fill that in with brown a little bit. There we go. Okay, so his throne is nice and filled in. Now it's turn for the planet. So before I start coloring it in, I'm just going to go ahead and finish this shape. See, I'm following the lines I already had. Just finishing the shape there. There. Now, remember how we've been coloring round things. We start with dark lines on the outside, and then we get a little lighter as we go inside. And remember, I'm coloring with curved lines. It's a little trickier with this robe, but you can do it. See, I've got dark lines on that side. Now I'm going to add my dark lines on this side. Okay, now I can lighten the lines up as I get in the middle. I'll also start coloring with straighter lines. And now I'll go back to being curved. Okay, great. I'll make this a little darker at the bottom. We are almost finished. All we need to do now is our sky. So let's take our orange and we'll do our planets and other stars first. I have 4 stars in this picture and then 1 planet down here. So there's one little tiny planet that's far away. I'll color this with my orange. And then I'm going to do 1 star down here in this corner. Remember, you could do stars in different ways. I'm doing mine like this, but if you want to do them a different way, that's okay. If you don't know how to do this. I'm going to add 1 up here. There's that one. And then I'll add 2 over here. Let's give 1 about here and maybe 1 right above it. Coloring my stars nice and dark. And last one. That way if I accidentally color over them with blue, it's okay. Alright. Now I did one last thing before I added the blue. On this planet over here, just gave it a little bit of red on the edges. Just makes it stand out a little bit more. In fact, we could even do that on our King's planet here if you would like to. You don't have to. I'll just add a little bit down at the bottom. It doesn't change that much. It just kind of makes it pop a little bit more. There we go. Okie doke. Let's take our blue and we are just gonna use the side of your crayon. Color that in. See, I'm going around the stars. Careful for his crown. Don't let it become green. No green crowns here. Notice how when I have something that I want to be careful to color around, I use short lines, but when I've got a big white space, I use long lines. It's good to think about what kind of lines you're using to color in. Think about where you need to be especially careful. There we go. King of his little world. Good work, friends.